Welcome to the week that was, but we mostly wish it wasn't, for the week ending December 12th, 2025. This is a weekly roundup of the highlights and lowlights of campus anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. This week I had around 45 stories to choose from. If something is happening in your neck of the woods, please be sure to let me know. I'm your host, Andrew Pessin. I'm a professor. Please don't hate me. For more about me and my work, visit andrewpessin.com. For all the details of today's stories and loads more stories, please follow me on X at Andrew Pessin. Start with an announcement. This coming Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, I will be giving a free webinar officially launching the Institute for the Critical Study of Anti-Zionism. This will be a scholarly enterprise aiming to document and expose the sordid origins and malevolent evolution of anti-Zionism, from the famous anti-Semitic text, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, through the Nazis, the Soviets, the Muslim Arabs, and today's Western progressives. I am seeking interested collaborators and possible sponsors, so if that's you, please reach out. To register, please see the link that I'll provide in the transcript and in the accompanying text of the Substack post. All right, let's get to the news. We'll start with a bit of good news. Florida, following Texas, has designated CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations, and the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations. That means 2 states down, 48 to go, plus, of course, the federal government. Now back to the usual news. Hamas leader Khaled Mashal this week boasted that over half of Americans aged 18 through 21 are engaged in Hamas resistance. Thank you, higher education. The Columbia Anti-Semitism Task Force released its fourth and final report this week, and its findings, of course, were quite the doozy, including that the entire Middle East Studies Department is anti-Zionist. Students were scapegoated, stereotyped, denied access to class, had their privacy violated, all by remorseless faculty who made no efforts to hide their bias. Israeli students were called out in class by faculty members as occupiers and murderers. Jewish students were personally degraded as faculty turned classrooms into kangaroo courts against Israel and against Jews. Faculty also used tropes to attack Jewish donors, such as claiming they were, quote, laundering blood money and portraying Jews as part of a system of white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. A faculty member read a confidential email that had been sent to the person by a student in the class, refuting it line by line, humiliating the student. Faculty, of course, promoted the anti-Semitic encampments, and some moved their classes there knowing that, quote, Zionists not welcome, end quote, in those encampments. And of course, most recently, Columbia promoted several faculty members who'd been involved in exactly some of these incidents. Meanwhile, New York University, down south of Columbia, their library this week was hit with graffiti saying, fuck the Jews, and a swastika. Just imagine how New York will be after Mamdani takes office. A little further south, Swarthmore, a building there was vandalized in protest of the ongoing Board of Managers meetings by being spray painted in blood red with the words Board of Butchers. I wonder who might have done that. A day before the vandalism and the arrival of the board, Swarthmore's Students for Justice in Palestine sent an email to the entire campus community with the subject line, Break the Board of Butchers. The email demanded that the board divest from relevant companies tied to Israel and said that, quote, we must pressure the board by every means necessary to drop their investments in genocide. The group Stop Anti-Semitism issued some campus report cards this week, giving Fs to 14 colleges, including Columbia, New School, Brown University, Harvard University, the University of Pennsylvania, and Yale. So the Ivy League is not doing well on that metric. San Jose State University, a tenured professor there, is fighting for her job after the university terminated her last month over, according to one article, her pro-Palestinian activism. But what did she do, one wonders? As one reads a little further, one discovers that she actively encouraged students to participate in a rule-breaking encampment and then ended up participating in it herself. And she was involved in some way in a physical confrontation at one of the anti-Israel protests. The university launched an investigation into her behavior and concluded that she had, quote, disrupted the university's operations and encouraged students to do the same. A faculty committee that reviewed the dismissal confirmed some of the allegations that she had indeed violated university policy. So one suspects it was more than merely her pro-Palestinian activism. Perhaps it was her breaking of multiple university rules. At the University of Maryland, flyers found inside the campus mosque claim that Israel, quote, attacked Gaza on October 7th while entirely erasing Hamas's massacre, and also claimed that Israel killed its own civilians. These flyers also included maps wiping out Israeli cities such as Kiryat Shmona and Akko while promoting, quote, resistance. Sarah Lawrence College allowed some pretty vile anti-Jewish hate speech on its free expression wall, as reported this past week, despite the fact that there are clearly stated rules that hate speech is not allowed, and then did nothing about it. The hate speech wall was written with, as quote, Zionism is racism and genocide, fuck normalization, and free Palestine. Right next to this free speech, this free expression area is a permanent plaque that says, express yourself, respect your community, and hate speech is not free speech. Again, apparently no actions were taken. In Canada, McMaster University, a recent article gave a rundown of recent incidents there. Let me just summarize that by saying it's bad. In South Africa, an Israeli academic was bullied out of a mental health conference. The professor described how the protest groups demanded that she read a pre-scripted political denunciation of Israel as a precondition for participating in the conference. They insisted that she use specific phrases such as accusing Israel of genocide and apartheid. In the lawsuit's legal department, UC Santa Barbara is the latest significant university to be slammed with a federal anti-Semitism lawsuit for abandoning a Jewish student to nonstop anti-Semitic harassment and allowing a masked or a university staffer to incite a crowd directly against her. The student in question is Tessa Wexler, who has come to some prominence for her courage and integrity in standing up and speaking out against the mob. She was featured in the important film October 8th. She's a true leader of the younger generation, and she underwent a horrific experience there. Merely by condemning the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, this unleashed horrific behavior against her, a relentless campaign, posters and signs across campus calling her a Zionist with threats like, you can run, but you can't hide, Tessa Wexler. Her phone number was doxed online and around campus. Zionist not welcome signs were posted at the Multicultural Center, not very inclusive there, right next to her office. There were flyers demanding she resign. She was class president. The Multicultural Center Instagram posted one of the hate flyers in question, constant bullying against her. In February, she calmly approached protesters to de-escalate. A masked university staffer stepped in and turned the crowd against her. UCSB, nothing, no protection, no discipline. University of Pennsylvania, recently an anti-Semitism lawsuit there was dismissed by, I believe, a federal judge. It is now scheduled to go to an appeal court. But George Mason law professor David Bernstein analyzed the dismissal and found that the judge literally just ignored the plaintiff's claims. The judge concluded that the plaintiff hadn't shown any incidents of anti-Semitism despite an extremely long list of anti-Semitic incidents. UC Berkeley this week reached a settlement in a discrimination lawsuit by an Israeli dance professor who was not rehired pretty blatantly and openly simply because she was Israeli. Pomona College also reached a Title VI anti-Semitism resolution this week, committing to significant changes, including that they've agreed to offer lectures and workshops on the modern manifestations of anti-Semitism and the connections between Judaism, Jewish identity, Israel, and Zionism, as well as supporting program about Jewish identity, including the Zionist component of Jewish identity. While that isn't bad, in my humble opinion, what's really necessary is to show that anti-Zionism is, in fact, a hate movement, which is one of the things that will be explored by the Institute for the Critical Study of Anti-Zionism. Northern Arizona University also reached a resolution involving an anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism case. Although the details were not clearly reported, they have agreed to implement a series of proactive measures aimed at fostering a more inclusive environment for Jewish students and faculty. K through 12 had a very busy week this week. In Washington, Mercer Island High School Library is featuring a human rights book or booklet that features an image of a very nasty-looking Israeli soldier with a big Jewish star on his chest oppressing a Palestinian child. When upset parents reached out to the principal to complain, they were told that the book would not be removed. New York City, a middle school was in the news this past week for barring a Holocaust survivor from speaking. And the school, of course, features keffiyeh-clad protesters in its social justice curriculum in the meanwhile. They claimed that the speaker's views were problematic. And what were those views? He supports Israel as a safe haven for Jews. In other words, as a place where if Israel had existed, perhaps Jews would not have been murdered in the Holocaust. That message is too problematic. Pennsylvania High School had a cultural fair featuring Palestinians proclaiming, quote, Jerusalem is ours. Not very inclusive, I would say. At a San Jose high school, students formed a large human swastika on a football field, posted the image on Instagram with a quote from a 1939 Hitler speech blaming Jews for plunging nations into war and calling for the annihilation of the Jewish race, even less inclusive than the previous stories. And finally, in the students openly endorsing violence department at Vassar University, the SJP there, planned to host an event, a teach-in discussing how activists could follow the lessons of the terrorist group Palestinian Front for Liberation, Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, excuse me, PFLP. They wanted to follow this group's historic example. The teach-in was titled, They Will Be Victorious. And they wrote in their various promotions, we will discuss how the Palestinian resistance group's historic example can inform our organizing today. One wonders about the historic example. Was it their participation in the October 7th massacre, perhaps? Their numerous contributions to the suicide bombings in recent decades, or the 2014 massacre of rabbis at a Jerusalem synagogue? Vassar did, to its credit, cancel the program, concerned that it might violate federal laws about providing material support to terrorists, but no word on any discipline for its students who are openly supporting mass violence against Jews and Zionists, including hoping to learn from that lesson. Oh, and now finally, anti-Semitism off campus. At a Washington, D.C. gala this past week, the Association and Club of Foreign Press Correspondents honored some veteran journalists, including Andrea Mitchell, Trey Yingst, and Jim Sciutto, and in addition, honored some Palestinian terrorists. They left a gala table open in memory of 6 Al Jazeera quote unquote journalists who were killed during the most recent Israel-Gaza war. But the 6 they pictured have all been positively identified as members of terrorist organizations. Nonprofit media watchdog Honest Reporting broke that story. Well, that's the news, unfortunately. Tune in next week to see what fresh horrors next week might bring. Again, I'm your host, Andrew Pessin at andrewpessin.com, and hoping everyone manages to keep it together. Until next week.